On this episode of Don't Panic, we talk about streaming games, whether it's PlayStation Now or EA Access. We also talk about Google's Barges being sold off. What a bummer. We also talk about Google Plus to spin off photos, the rise of the standalone app, and some media picks, movies, TVs, and video games. It's a don't miss episode of Don't Panic, and it comes up now. This is Don't Panic, episode number 58, recorded August 4th, 2014. On all the games, scrapped barges, and the standalone app. Hello and welcome to this edition of Don't Panic, the technology podcast that stars us. I'm Sean Jennings and I'm joined by the Hansel and Gretel of technology. Leaving breadcrumbs to find their way home, it would of course be Dan Miller and Colby Rabideau. Guys, what's up?
Not too much. I'm getting pumped because I'm going to be in New York this week.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. I have finished my whirlwind tour of all the porters in the local beer store, and this one's the best. Although whatever one I had last week was really good too. I'll have to go back and watch the video because I'm pretty sure I held it up then. But I think this is better. Bell's Quarter.
I'm drinking this Brew Free or Die IPA from 21st Amendment. It's pretty good. It's not as good as their Back in Black IPA. That is my personal favorite.
That sounds quite IPA-ish.
Yeah, unfortunately they didn't have any of that at the store the other day. So
I'm really going outside my comfort zone. I went with water.
Oh, wow.
You can see here in my clear mug.
Is that Russian water?
This is Poland Springs, fresh from Poland. I don't think it works that way.
Sean parties hard.
You bet. Well, thanks everyone out there for joining us. This is Don't Panic. We do this every Monday night, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific, on our website, don'tpanic.io. You should probably go check out our website. It's awesome and built by these two guys, but on there, you get all the links to the cool stuff we do, including how to find us on iTunes. You can subscribe to us on Stitcher, RSS, YouTube, follow us, Facebook, Twitter, everything. It's all there, so go check it out. And tweet live if you're watching during the show. We want to hear from you. Hashtag Don't Panic Show. We'll be watching it as the show goes on. Who knows? Maybe we'll talk about you. You'll be famous to Dan's mom. Couldn't resist. Now, before we start, I did want to mention, I probably should have given you guys a heads up because this isn't really fair, but, last week we talked about kind of like our favorite, or 2 weeks ago, our favorite podcasts at the start of the show. And this week I was thinking, when it comes to computer utilities, most people get free versions, right? Very few people actually pay for the full version. But I was thinking, if you guys had any kind of computer utilities that you said, I absolutely should pay. The free version's fine, but you felt it was worth paying the money for. And I didn't know if there was any. And the reason I bring this up is because this week, I spent this weekend, my computer, it's not even a year old, came with a terabyte hard drive. I had it 80% full. I mean, I do so much video stuff and everything, it was so full. So I spent the whole weekend cleaning it out, and I realized there is a utility I could not live without, and I ponied up the cash, and that was C Cleaner and the Piriform family of utilities.
C Cleaner, formerly known as Crap Cleaner before they went all PC on us. No pun intended.
They're still on Mac.
No. I don't think you caught my pun there, Sean.
I did not catch your pun. Please
allow me to repeat myself. C Cleaner, formerly known as Crap Cleaner before they went all PC on us.
Aha.
Politically correct.
Yes,
but
I got the innuendo. But anyway, I've been using the tool for years, and I was a big fan, and I was also using Defraggler, which is another program they offer, and they offer a package where you get those two and another file recovery software, a fourth piece of software, all for a reasonable price, and I said it was absolutely worth paying for because I use it all the time, and the great thing is if you pay for it, you get automatic updating and real-time monitoring. So instead of having to run a scan when you remember it, it will literally pop up and say, we can save your computer a gigabyte worth of hard drive space. Should we run a cleaner? And you hit yes, and it just does it. Or every time you close your browser, it'll automatically clean it. So for me, that was really worth it. I didn't know if you guys had any worth sharing.
So along that same vein, Daisy Disk is my OS X version of that, which shows you I could even share my screen, but it might take a while. I'll show it at the end of the show, but it shows this really cool radial layout of your hard drive with like pie slices of everything, and then slices of those things coming off of that thing, like out infinitely, so you can see, like you can see at a glance if a folder is large because it has a bunch of movies in it, or if it's just filled with a bunch of small stuff. So that's pretty cool.
I love file visualizers.
Yeah. Tweetbot, which we might have talked about on the show on OS X, worth it. iStat menus, which I've also picked before to show you at-a-glance system stuff in the menu bar on the top. Also totally worth it. Airmail, which I also picked on the show before. Also totally worth it.
Plus for the iStat menu. I love it.
Yeah. OmniFocus for Mac, which I just recently upgraded to version 2, which was just released this past month. I was in the beta, so I got grace perioded into it for a month, but then they cut me off. OmniFocus. Those are all the ones that pop into my head. Those are all the ones I use every day. Well, I don't use Daisy Disk every day, but you reminded me of it. But the other ones, definitely every day.
Okay.
How about you, Colby?
So I think you covered a bunch of the ones I use every day, namely iStat menus. To be honest, I don't use that many Mac applications on a daily basis.
Do you use Dash? Did you ever pony up for that? Dash is the offline documentation viewer.
No, I didn't.
It's a good one.
I
didn't actually buy it though, so
wasn't that good?
Along. Well, I just don't find myself away from the internet all that often.
That's fair. Yeah, me either. So one other one that I don't use, that I do use, is this is not a daily thing, but I use this thing called Wi-Fi Explorer when we were trying to figure out if our network woes were because of our ISP or if it was because of our shitty Airport Express router. Turns out it's a little of both. But like Wi-Fi Explorer is this really cool program. It costs like $3 on the Mac App Store. It's $2.99, and it shows you all the Wi-Fi networks in range of your computer and like their signal strength. And it has these crazy visualizations, and you can see like what channels, what networks are on, and you can kind of try and like squeeze your network on in a low band space and stuff. In general, it's like kind of useful if you're doing something like that. If you're not, it's also just kind of cool to look at if you live in a place where there's a lot of Wi-Fi networks, I do. There are literally probably like 50. There are so many.
What was that called again?
It's called Wi-Fi Explorer. If you Google it, it should come up.
Cool. So I got my Daisy Disk results, so I can show you those real quick. So here's the view. Here's the here you go. Here's the top level view. So I can click through. I can see here what the different things are. This is my home directory, and then in here, turns out that pictures take up a lot of space. Right? How do I get to pictures? Pictures, and I can see that's just a bunch of big files. What's this? And so this is like, Steam is a bunch of small files. So it's a lot of fun to look at. The other one I forgot that I bought that is this thing called iNet, which is useful if you use any of Apple's... it's not even showing up on my thing. Oh, here it is. Apple's networking stuff. So it's like... the Airport Utility Plus, so you can see all the hosts on your network. This is my PS4, my Raspberry Pi. You can do some crazy things in here. All sorts of stuff. Super awesome. Cool. Yeah, iNet. I think it wasn't that much. It was only a couple dollars too.
Yeah, and I'll just follow that up by I think I've actually picked it twice on the show, and that tells you how much I use it. I use it to do the show. DVD VideoSoft, which is a package of various video, audio converters, YouTube downloaders, all this kind of. It's like 1,000 tools in one, and I use it literally every week. So I've been a big fan of that, but I think it's cool to talk about things like this and how important it is to, if you really like an app and use it all the time, it doesn't really hurt to pay for it, because you get your money's worth.
Yeah. That's true.
We support developers who should be watching Change Mode on the Coffee and Beer Podcast Network. If you're interested in isomorphic JavaScript, you should check out last week's show. It's available at coffeeandbeer.tv. All right, enough shameless plugs and wasting time. Let's get into the news. Any story you guys want to talk about first? I wouldn't call it a huge week for news, but some interesting.
Can we talk about streaming games?
We can talk about games. We got 2 interesting game stories this week, both kind of aiming towards that subscription model. And we'll start, as Colby brought up, with the streaming. So we've talked about it on the show before. PlayStation Now. The idea, kind of a takeoff on Live, if you're familiar with that. But this idea that why play a game on your own device when the game can be played on a server and you just send it commands from your controller? So you're not doing the processing in-house, you're doing it somewhere else. Well, Sony decided they're actually going to do it. They bought the service called Gaikai?
Yeah.
They bought that a couple years ago, and they decided to fold it in, and they announced PlayStation Now, actually, I think at CES, or at least kind of more information about it, but now it's started to go out to reviewers and starting to roll into beta for super select people. Currently, the library only exists of PlayStation 3 games. I imagine that's going to expand. But...
Well, so I've had this thing for a while.
Okay.
I've been beta testing it. And
Great.
It works really well. But as far as I can tell, exactly what's happening is you connect to this remote data center and you log on to a PlayStation 3. You have access to like the system menu and everything. And you also get your notifications. Like, notifications aren't native on your screen anymore. They are streamed. It's just like remote desktop PlayStation 3, but it's really good remote desktop. There's very little lag and everything works really well. But it would not be just as easy as putting some PS4s in there. They'd probably have to. I mean, it'd be pretty easy at this point. You'd just be like streaming a PS4 instead. But it's not super complicated. It's just a PS4 in a rack, or a PS3 in a rack.
So then let me ask Dan, how have you said the quality's been good and you haven't had a lot of lag, but you also have a pretty decent bandwidth.
I do, and it actually makes you test your connection every time you turn it on, because they probably don't want you to have a terrible experience.
Yeah.
So they make you test it, and they also tell you before you test it to plug it into the Ethernet, because that does cut down on a couple of milliseconds of lag, which is pretty noticeable in like a first-person shooter or something like that.
Yeah. I remember on Live would do that. Like, it always tested your connection before you did it, and like if it wasn't up to snuff, you're out.
Yeah.
Is it so? Dan, like, do you like it? Like, good?
Yeah.
Pro, con?
I
what
would.
games do you play on there?
So they don't have like an amazing selection. I played. The game I played the most was probably this like off-road BMX racing game, which I thought was the most challenging of the games they had on there. I also played this like top-down shooter thing. I think it was Plants vs. Zombies, I think, or something like that. And I also played this turn-based pirate game. The turn-based pirate ship game is like the ideal situation where the input lag doesn't matter at all. But granted, I hadn't played the original of the off-road motocross one, but it felt really good. At no point did I feel like, this is such a drag. If there was any lag, I had to really focus to detect it. Yep. Otherwise, I didn't notice it. And the image is not perfect. Like, it's a little blurry around like corners and stuff. Like, you can tell that it's not native, but I think that's a fair trade for playing it immediately, especially if it's something you don't care about necessarily, graphical quality-wise, or something like a PS3 game you just want to play on your PS4 because that's all you have, or if you're just trying it out. If you just want to try out the game for a couple hours before you know if you want to buy it, I think that's totally a good trade-off.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, I think it's good to see that the quality is there, because that was one of our big questions. I know when we talked about it around CES was, can they actually pump games through these pipes? Sony recommends at least 5 to 12 megabits steady broadband, which covers a lot of people. But what's interesting to me is the cost side of this. So,
yeah,
it's certainly not cheap. Polygon writes, to run a game Darksiders, a game that's been practically given away to PC owners over the years, you can pay $14.99 for 90 days, $7.99 for 30 days, $5.99 for 5 days, or $4.99 for 4 hours of play.
Yeah, that one's just stupid. The 4 hours of play should always be free. Imagine that, because one-time use only, 4 hours free, and just like iTunes, once you start the movie or game is when your rental period starts. So you could play for 15 minutes, and then 4 hours later, your 4-hour rental is expired. So I think that they should make the lower ends pretty cheap. The thing that I was really excited for this, though, is not even so much that I would ever want. I would probably want to rent some games, and I'd be willing to pay more than the... Are there any physical video game rental places left? No.
Gamefly will still mail them to you.
Okay. What is Gamefly's pricing like? I would be willing to pay more than them to stream it, but what I really want is when I buy the game, I just keep playing, or I start streaming and it's downloading in the background, and that requires a whole mess of bandwidth. But I should be able to maybe decide, like, I'm gonna buy this game now. I could stream it forever, and then like when I stop playing it for the night, I can set it to download and it'll come down, and then I don't have to stream it anymore. That's what I really want.
I mean, yeah, I think the streaming game model isn't really built for someone who has owned every single copy of Madden and is definitely going to buy the next one and wants the collector's pack with the discs. I mean, that's not... I think this could be a really interesting model, sort of like what Netflix... And I hate to compare it to Netflix because everyone friggin' does, but, this Netflix idea of all this kind of backlog content that's been sitting collecting dust. They tried selling TV on DVD and no one bought it because no one wanted 38 discs of Seinfeld, and instead put it online. And it's better to get some money than no money. Why overcharge for a game you can get used at GameStop for half the price? Instead, get people excited to use the games, and then I think the assumption would be the more time they spend on their PlayStations, regardless of what they're doing, at some point will result in more money for Sony.
Right. Do you know what's the month-long price? $7.99 for 30 days.
Yeah.
So that's better than GameFly. GameFly at your best would get you $11 at the highest tier per game per month.
But that's as many games as you want, as long as you send them back.
No, that's 2 games a month at $23 a month.
Oh, capped. Okay.
Yeah, so $11 a game-ish.
But those are also new releases.
Yeah, that's true.
If these were the prices for Madden 25 or a brand new game that just came out, I could buy that.
Yeah.
But it's people have said Sony is rumored to be looking at a subscription model. It wouldn't surprise me if these were just kind of beta prices and testing the market to see what works and what doesn't. I don't want Sony to give their content away, but I think you have to look at streaming differently. And I think the video game industry has to come to terms with what the movie and television industry did years ago, which was you can't charge an absurd amount for a season of a television show, or people won't buy a digital movie for $14.99, but they will rent it for $5.99. And they'll get there. They'll get there. I'm glad to hear the technology works, because that's the difficult thing to fix, right? All they have to do to change prices is they snap their fingers and they do it. They can't rebuild an entire server farm or whatever. So
yeah,
that's true.
Yeah, I'm sure the game publishers are just like, yeah, sure, do it.
Right. I feel like it's a like low commitment way to get people into other stuff. But I think Dan is. I think you're also correct in that the 4 hours should be free.
At least
once.
Once, yeah. But first, maybe not all the time, but like make that the default. Because this used to be how it was on PC. You would always like demos. Why bother spending all this time making a separate cut of the game and putting it on these discs and putting them in magazines and putting them on the store and vetting it and making sure that there's nothing, too much in there that someone can get into? Why not just cap it at 4 hours? You don't have to worry about spending all your engineers' time on that stuff. You just give them the full game. They get 4 hours. You're getting money either way. Either they pony up a whole lot of money to keep playing it 4 hours at a time, or they buy the game.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing, too, we're missing... There's a component missing here, which is this is not really designed to be played on your brand new PlayStation 4. This is designed to be played on devices who can't power games themselves. That's where you're really going to get the value, right? So when you can play it on your Sony TV without plugging anything into it, or when you can play it on your set-top box, or when you can play full-sized, full games on your phone or your tablet, I think that's where you're going to see the value, because in a second we're going to talk about Electronic Arts. I don't see the problem. I don't know why, if I had a PlayStation 4 or an Xbox One, why would I stream the game? I would much rather, especially these older games, I can't imagine the file sizes are incredibly outlandish. I'd rather download them and know I'm getting instant feedback and don't have to worry about lag and don't have to be concerned about my internet connection. And then put a timer on that and let the file expire.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think the real... Well, I think the thing that this solves that you kind of glazed over in that is that there are a bunch of games that are never going to work on the PS4 because they were only released on the PS3. That's the problem this solves in my mind. Is like, I want to go play this PS3 game, but I have a PS4, so I can't ever play this game. That's not the case if I can stream it.
True. Yeah.
Colby, that is exactly right, and I feel dumb I didn't think of that point. You nailed me on that.
I feel like someone else said this already.
Probably. It's nostalgia factor. People love crap like that. How many people do you know that play like Roller Coaster Tycoon and like these old games? People love stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, isn't that one of Wii's biggest moneymakers? Is there channel store or something where you can play like not just old Wii games, but just flat out old Nintendo games.
Oh yeah, Nintendo's been making money off their old games for years.
Yeah.
That's like my roommates and I recently all sat around in the living room and watched my one roommate play like Resident Evil 1 on like a PlayStation emulator. It was a blast. It was scary. And hard. It was really hard, actually.
Yeah, those controls, you don't want that.
No, it's bad news.
Well, on the flip side, going from PlayStation to Xbox, Electronic Arts, multiple-time winner, worst company of ever, has come out with a new service, a bit of a surprise, called EA Access. And what it is an all-you-can-eat video game subscription service for $4.99 a month or $29.99 a year. It's available on the Xbox One, currently in beta, but will be available to everyone soon. During the beta, it supports 4 titles: FIFA 14, Madden NFL 25, Peggle 2, and Battlefield 4, though they say they're going to continue to add games. They haven't specifically said how many games will be available, what games will be available. They did say that the service will get you early access to demo upcoming titles, including the sports titles as they come out, the new Dragon Age game, up to 5 days ahead of launch. EA subscribers will get 10% off when buying EA games through Xbox One store. And these are not streamed. These are, locally hosted, downloaded, and then played off your machine games as part of the subscription service. So, I mean, what do you guys think of this versus a PlayStation Now or just even on its own?
That's not streaming, right? That's just you download the game through the Xbox store?
Right.
Gotcha. I mean, it's cool. It's like the other half of it, right? That's what we want, but with the streaming thing. The streaming thing is what really gets me excited. If there's a frictionless way to play a new game immediately and give them money, that's where the real win is. I'm not going to pay EA a monthly fee to spend 8 hours downloading their game that I might not like, especially because it's EA. And I think, but on the other hand, EA is one of the few gaming companies, and I don't actually know that much about the gaming industry, but I think it's one of the few where they even have a big enough catalog to pull something like that off. Like, Blizzard couldn't have a monthly game subscription. They only have like 8 games total.
Yeah.
Ever.
That's a fair point. Yeah. It is like the barrier to playing a new game is kind of high. Like, especially if your internet connection is not like amazing.
Right.
Like, I downloaded a new game this weekend, and I mean, it took like 4 hours to download 10 gigs of like crap so I could start playing. I will say the fact that I did not I could start playing before it downloaded the entire 45 gigs or whatever was pretty awesome.
Yes, I'm so glad the PS4 has that.
Yeah, that was cool. However,
we can take it to the next level. Time. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It could be better. It could be like Spotify style, where if it's like downloading that song will like download as I listen to it. That's what I want.
You could make it peer-to-peer, and then you're streaming the content from other people. Never mind.
You're overthinking this a little bit.
Well, that's Spotify is peer-to-peer.
Right, but they're serving static like that. Like, I guess you could work it where you're like streaming the game assets themselves from other people's computers. That would be crazy, though. Really crazy.
That would be insane.
For me, I think this is awesome because I can't tell you how many times over the last couple months my finger has hovered over Amazon, one click, PlayStation or Xbox, and I think Colby and Dan have them. It'll be fun. We'll play games.
Destiny.
We'll be buddies. And then I think I will never be able to justify $60 in a game because I have such a short attention span. And I'm terrible at video games that I will buy one, say this is stupid, and I will never use it. But I think I could justify the upfront hardware cost for a $4.99 a month subscription service that has the latest games on it.
And the back catalog. I think the back catalog is key there too.
And I think that's what's interesting when you're comparing and contrasting Sony and PlayStation and Xbox, right? Because they have both sides of the same coin, right? Sony has the legacy titles streaming, and Xbox has the new titles on subscription. Imagine if those worked together, right?
Yeah,
that would be like, boom!
Right. I agree.
So I think this is really cool. I'd be curious to see what games they're going to add and how they're going to update them. But, even if you wanted Battlefield 4 and Madden NFL 25, I mean, they're what, $50 each? Right away you're at $100, regardless of how much you like or don't like the game. Or you could pay $4.99 for a month and decide you like or not like them.
I will say I got the MLB game and I don't like it at all.
That's the...
It takes so long to load. Like, starting a game takes forever. Like minutes, many minutes, too many minutes.
For shame.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. Get off of video games and onto something else. What would you guys like to talk about next? Any specific request here? We can talk about
Google Plus. Let's do that.
Google Plus. Oh, everyone loves Google Plus. Are you guys? I know big Google Plus users.
Let's do the Google Barge first.
All right, we'll do back to back
because
Google
the Google Plus one has a beautiful segue into the last story that's just too good to pass up.
Okay, Dan, you're just good thing someone's in charge.
Always thinking ahead.
those of you out there may remember when Google mysteriously bought two barges, and were building something on them and wouldn't tell anybody.
October.
Yeah, didn't know what was going on. They had one floating off of the California coast and one floating off the Maine coast.
It was in San Francisco, right?
It was in San Francisco, and then I think they moved it to Portland, where it's been for.
Now, but I thought that was Portland, Maine, and they were talking about the Maine one, but they moved it to Portland, Oregon.
No, they moved it to Portland, Maine. I'm sorry. It was the West Coast one was moored off San Francisco's Treasure Island.
There we go. Good old Treasure Island.
Well, it was reported by the Portland Press Herald, everyone's favorite Maine news source, that Google has sold off one of its barges and it is being dismantled for the scrapyard. The barge was holding up the mysterious 4-story structure. Google eventually planning to use it as a, quote, interactive space where people can learn about new technology. Google confirmed that it sold the barge off, but would not say what was happening to the other one. Google's paid for the California barge to be docked there through October. So at least it's paid for, so we probably won't see it move until then. But yeah, no one knows. There was another report back in March. Company was looking for real estate in Soho in New York City to put together a store. I mean,
Who was?
Google.
Oh.
To do retail.
Well, they have. Do they have any other retail stores? Do they have retail stores at all?
No.
They had in New York. They had their Winter Wonderland or whatever.
The pop-ups.
But it was like they took like all of Bryant Park, and they had this whole like igloo with all these different tables inside with Chromebooks and Android tablets and Android phones.
Yeah, that's what the Microsoft did the same thing when they did the Surface launch as well. They did a series of pop-up stores.
Right, but Microsoft has actual stores too. Google does not have actual stores, physical stores. Okay.
Yeah, so this was supposedly their big push, but I mean, this story is so bizarre. I can't even fairly ask you, what does this mean?
I'm disappointed. I wanted to see him build something and float it out in the ocean. I wanted to go on it.
Would you have hung out on the Google barge?
I don't know if I'd hang out there. I certainly would have gone. And
do you think
what they get? That's like every store wants you to want to go there.
Do you think it would have been better or worse than the Samsung experience?
Oh, it would have to be better. It would have to be better. Oh, that was so bad. I've said this before and I'll say it again because it's just such an apt analogy. It was like walking into a rap music video. Just giant, shiny things that look like they should be expensive but are actually like terrible knockoffs just everywhere. Everywhere. It was so gaudy.
But instead you'd rather hang out on the floating barge.
Totally, because Google would have
store.
like people with glasses on and like Sergey Brin would be there nerding out. Well, that's my thing right there.
Wow. I don't know how comfortable I'd feel on the Google barge, to be quite honest, because, Dan, once you're in international waters, those laws, they change pretty quick, and things can go downhill.
All of a sudden, there'll be a glass implanted in your head. And
what happened to
you won't
Sergey?
remember anything.
Was it Sergey Brin who talked about the Google Island, or was that Larry Page? I think that was Larry Page's Google Island.
Yeah. Wouldn't surprise me. Don't like between the two of them, they have like 20 jumbo jets or some crazy shit?
The TechCrunch title is Larry Page wants Earth to have a mad scientist island. It's probably exactly what it sounds like.
Oh, that's right. It was the island where he wanted to try out new laws.
Right. Yeah. So,
I love that guy. I love crazy people.
You bring up a good point. Now, after reading what that article actually was about, maybe I would not go on the Google barge.
You're telling me you don't want to go on the Google barge where they make up new laws to test and see how well they work? Because that sounds great.
A/B test laws. The West Coast barge gets one set of laws, and then the East Coast barge gets another set, and you see what like the mortality rate is after 3 months.
Now you're talking. Now this is an HBO show.
No. Now
the
it's
barges.
Yeah.
and they float the seas fighting each other.
Yeah.
Battling for tech supremacy. I'd watch that.
You're right. That is HBO and not like some stupid movie. What was that movie where they took all the prisoners in prison and just had them kill each other in these killer like road derbies? Does anyone remember?
Oh.
Yes, I do. What movie was that?
And there's so many movies like that. There's been a couple of the other one where there's that day where everyone just beats the shit out of each other. There's that movie.
Oh, The Purge?
Yeah, there's all these movies, and they're all the same premise.
Dan, you're thinking of the 2008 film Death Race, starring Jason Statham.
Jason Statham.
I just have to read the movie description here, okay?
Yeah,
Jason Statham stars as ex-con Jensen Ames, who's forced by the warden of a notorious prison to compete in our post-industrial world's most popular sport, a car race in which inmates must brutalize and kill one another on the road to victory.
Exactly.
And you're saying that's what would have happened on the Google Barge?
No, that's what the HBO show would be.
I just think of I'm starting to think this is like Google's most elaborate April Fool's joke they've ever done.
That would have been great.
The Barge.
That would have been great.
They could spend millions of dollars just to psych everyone out. Because how could this have ever been a good idea?
I mean, how much do barges cost? Maybe it was really cheap.
Well, no,
for Google, anything's cheap.
They said it's not exorbitantly expensive, but they said in taxes alone, the Portland barge brought the city of Portland a reported $400,000 in property taxes over the past 10 months.
$400,000.
Nothing. Pennies.
Google made $50 billion in 2012.
That's just change in Sergey's pocket. That's nothing.
Yeah. Seriously. No, they should have done something with it. How is it not a good idea? If you have over $50 billion a year, you could spend like a couple 100,000 of that on some crazy ideas. I'm just.
Yeah, but like, okay, like a contact lens that measures your glucose level, a self-driving car. These are crazy things you should spend your money on. A floating barge to show off your products. Like, couldn't you just get a retail store? They could build. Think of the retail store they could build.
Sean. It's floating.
But if you think about it, like, I don't, whatever. It's just such a stupid idea. I'm sorry. Like, Google, I enjoy the laughter of you doing crazy things, but I cannot get over just a barge? Really?
All right.
I know. All right. I'm getting worked up. It's just silly. I know. Google. It gets me all kinds of hot and bothered.
And Colby, just so you know, the Samsung Experience Store is still open if you want to experience the.
I think you should bring a camera and do a remote Don't Panic.
And it's not the Samsung Experience Store. It's the Samsung Galaxy Studio in Soho. My apologies.
Samsung's the worst.
And it has 4.5 out of 5 stars on Yelp. $1 sign though.
Yeah, how many people do you think? How many people did they pay for that? Honestly, I would much rather go on the Google Barge than the Samsung Galaxy Studio. I will say that.
Yeah. See, that's all.
Because at least on Google, you're gonna have fun, and not just be kind of sad. All right, let's move on from just crazy to more Google, but we're gonna talk about Google Plus. Everyone knows and loves Google Plus. There's been a question since Vic Gundotra. Okay. Head of Google Plus left the company in April, and there's kind of been a question as well, what's the future for Google Plus? Well, Bloomberg is reporting that Google is planning to make the existing Google Plus photo features into an independent product.
Bloomberg Bleak?
Blah, 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 blah. Yes, indeed. No, just regular Bloomberg.
Okay.
That they're going to spin Google Plus photo features into an independent product that'll be accessible even to users who don't have a Google Plus account.
Woo!
Okay. Now, first of all, I cannot imagine Google would release a product that would not integrate with your Google Plus account.
Oh, I'm sure it would integrate with it. It just wouldn't require it.
But name one other Google product that doesn't require you to have a Google account.
Yeah, you're right. That would suck. Like,
I don't know.
Because the way I'm imagining it...
Go ahead.
The way I'm imagining it working is it's just like it does now, except a standalone thing. Because the Google Plus Photos is really awesome. It's just kind of weird because it's in Google Plus. If Photos was a standalone Picture Life competitor where you just upload all your photos, unlimited storage for free, which is what Google Plus is, everyone would use it. But because it's part of Google Plus, no one thinks to use it. Or they don't realize they're using it. A lot of people turn it on their phones and then they're like, oh no, where'd my photos go? And it's like, well, they're backed up to Google Plus. But that sentence doesn't even make sense to most people. It's like, isn't that a social network? It's like, well, no. Yes, but no.
It depends if you define a social network as something people use.
Zing.
Sick burn. So, yeah, I would like it. If they split it off, I would use it way more. For whatever reason. I'm sure I would.
But do you use a photo service now?
I use Picture Life, which I think I picked on the show before.
You did.
Yes.
And I promptly forgot.
There you go.
So it's that.
They
good.
recently upgraded their plans too. I don't know if that was before or after I picked it, but now you get more for all the tiers, and the top tier is unlimited.
It's not bad.
I want to like Picture Life, but their Android app is really not good, which makes me sad. But it's probably my fault for having Android.
You said it, not me. Though I was thinking about saying it.
No, let's be real. I'm probably gonna get an iPhone.
Yeah, smart. The three of us are all going to be on our new iPhones in no time. Tells you what we think.
Yeah. It was a fun field trip, but like,
you're ready to get off the bus.
Field trip. There's a short bus joke to be made here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think. The problem is, I question how to get people to care about their photos, because in an age of Instagram and Snapchat where people don't care about the longevity of their photos, or I don't think they do, or at least they don't realize they do. I'm going to keep prefacing this until I basically wash away my argument. But I think that's why Flickr I think is a great service. I've used it. I've never really had any problems with it. They give you a terabyte of storage.
A terabyte?
Yeah, Flickr is good.
But no one gets excited about it unless you're somebody who's a photographer or has children and want to keep all the photos. I think your average user just... I use Carousel via Dropbox to back up all my photos, but I never end up sharing any of them. Really, rarely. Otherwise, they go straight to Instagram. So... it's cool, and I love the Google Plus, the Auto Awesome stuff, the Stories features. If you've ever used any of kind of the ancillary stuff, rather than just the pure hosting side, they're really good tools, and they work really well. But I just don't know if people are like, man, I'm so excited to use a photo service. I think everyone's I'm just uploading my photo to social media, and what happens after that, I don't care. Or I could be wrong. Probably am.
I've encountered this, and I was confused. People, I suspect, and some of you probably maybe can confirm this, that most people just take pictures on their phone and never take them off. They're just always on the phone, and then when they get a new phone, then their pictures are just on their old phone now.
No, so what happens is people take pictures on their phone, and they don't take them off until their phone runs out of space, and they have to take some of them off, and then they go back through and delete a bunch of pictures. But I think, at least thinking about my personal usage, I have like two kinds of photos that I take. There are like photos I take when I'm like on vacation and things I might care about again someday. And then there are all the other photos I take, which I either share to social media or I just don't do anything with. And like those photos I don't care about, but there are some photos that I take in certain situations that are like I take like deliberately to like record that moment in time. And those photos I care about, and those are the photos that I like want. Now, it turns out like for me, generally speaking, I don't take enough photos to like even have to pay for something like Picture Life. So I don't know. Yeah. Also, I usually upload my photos to Facebook, like the photos I want to keep. And I don't know if it's like that's a reasonable thing to like think that those are going to be there forever. But
I think the value in this service would come from either one of two things. Either they make it impossibly easy to just throw all your files in a cloud and you don't care about them being organized and you just want them there and you don't want to think about it, and when your phone dies or you drop it in a toilet, Google has all your photos. Or I think there would be value in a service that was all about sharing photos, because something like Flickr is really built to store photos, right? Most of these services are.
I think Flickr was primarily built to share photos, and they built the storage thing in later.
I mean, I just know...
Flickr is like a photography community, really. Like, if you want to post a picture and have photographers see it, you put it on Flickr.
Right, but it's a self-contained social network. I'm saying there needs to be a service that... And I know I don't think you could even do this, but I want a one-click to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, share everywhere, single filter, single link back, a central repository for your photos. I think there's value in that. I just think...
That app doesn't exist? I did look for an iPhone app that would do this, because we talked about it before, and it doesn't exist. So, maybe... Because, like, Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, they don't just want you posting pictures to their service willy-nilly that aren't, like...
You're totally right.
Well, so, like, I mean, I think the other thing is that, like, that's not... That may be how, like, the three of us use those things, but that's not how most people use, like Facebook and Instagram. Like, Facebook and Instagram are, like, different things for most people. It's, like, different... audiences, different, like, you post different pictures to Instagram than you post to Facebook, and you post you send different pictures on Snapchat. Like, I don't think normal people want to post one picture to all of those things.
I think that's fair. Well then, yeah, go ahead.
Well, there are certain pictures I want to post to multiple places.
That's fair.
And I don't want the Instagram version, because right now Instagram's the only one that really does this. I don't want the Instagram version because that's like the least common denominator. I don't want it cropped to some stupid square. As much as you think that's great, Instagram, I took my photo landscape for a reason.
And I think a good example is I think it's not uncommon. When I take an Instagram photo, I usually share it on Twitter. Right? Makes sense. The problem is Instagram doesn't work with their cards preview service. So the photo won't show up in line. It'll only show up as a link.
Right.
So I have an IFT recipe set up where take a photo on Instagram. It will then take the photo URL, convert it to pic.twitter.com, and it will embed that so it becomes an inline preview. See, there's value in that, right? It's getting these services to work together. But as we talk about this, and maybe this is my opinion as I realize it, I don't think the majority of people need any kind of photo management service whatsoever, because I don't think they want it. Down the road, they might. I mean, I know I worked for, a year plus in an archive, and after about 2000, the archive stopped. There was just nothing. It just stopped because everything was digital. Yeah. Nobody bothered to keep records. Nobody bothered to do. It was just all there digital. And one day that's going to suck. But I think today, I think more people might use it than Google Plus. But I don't know if it's really its savior. I'm not very optimistic.
No, but I think it would be more popular than it is.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's the best part of Google Plus is the photo stuff.
Yep.
Oh yeah, I agree with that. And Hangouts.
So I'd like to see them succeed. And I think throwing in something like unlimited storage, Amazon Prime's doing that if you use the Fire Phone. And I think that's, 1 terabyte on Flickr. I think that would be good value as well.
It's already unlimited though.
Well, on Google Plus, yeah.
Right. Oh, actually, it says you have 15 gigabytes of free storage, but you have to like go to Google Help thing.
Well, in storage is you can get, I think, was it like $1.99 a month for 100 gigabytes? I mean, it's relatively cheap on Google.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on in the interest of time. We got one more story, Dan. I know you're excited to talk about this one.
Yeah.
This is a story from TechCrunch, and the headline is "Why Standalone Apps Are Supposed to Fail." And they talk about this recent thing, and we've talked about on the show, and the idea of the kind of spin-off standalone app. Examples of which you may be familiar with would be Facebook Slingshot, Instagram Bolt, Dropbox Carousel. There are other examples as well. Twitter Music might be a good example.
Did we say Swarm yet?
Well, Swarm was a split. It wasn't really a spin-off because it took away features from the core app.
That is a unique case, I would say.
But what this article, and it's a really good article, and I actually recommend people read it, but I'm going to sum it up quickly as best I can. With their basic theory being that it's good for these standalone apps to, like Facebook Poke being an example, to have tried and failed. Because A, as not being part of the core Facebook app, it can fail and not detract from the experience, distract users, or create a complicated experience. Rather, it can fail on its own and just kind of disappear. Mm-hmm. However, if it succeeds, it's a good testing ground to prove the case, and it's something that can then later be folded into an app. The argument being that why experiment within your already successful and popular app and risk failure, then create a second side app that you can then fold back in. Facebook Camera is a good example of this, where it was a standalone app, Facebook tried some cool things with it, and then eventually folded it back into their own app.
Okay.
No, go ahead.
So I see, I think half of that is correct. I think it makes it what you're saying about the price of failure is pretty low. I think that's true. What I'm unsure of is whether or not the eventual goal for these things is to fold it back into the main experience. I don't know if that's the case. It doesn't. I'm not sure. With something like Slingshot, I don't see the how does that get folded back into Facebook, I guess.
And how does what about Messenger? Is that a standalone app?
Yeah.
But that's not going to get folded back in. They just pulled it out.
Right. Well, I mean, yeah. That's. I feel like that's more the Swarm case, where it's the point is to pull it out. But
I'm gonna have to do a supercut of every time we say pull out. Yeah, I went there. But no, and Colby, I think you're exactly
natural
right.
Family planning.
You know, the other side is these companies. Yeah, suspense. You like that? The other side is that it's becoming increasingly expensive for companies to acquire. We joke every time that a WhatsApp is 16 Instagrams, but it's continuing to get expensive to acquire these. And part of this theory of the standalone app is that you can quickly create an app in a space where you may want to acquire and see how it does against the competitor. Because best case scenario, your app takes off, eclipses that company you were going to buy for $1 billion, and suddenly you just saved yourself $1 billion, right? Worst case scenario, it fails and you still end up buying them anyway. But at least you tried, right? And I think that's kind of the theory, especially with Poke. I mean, obviously a answer to Snapchat. But Facebook at the time would have had to have spent $1 billion to buy it. Did they miss the boat on that? Yes. But in an alternate reality, if Poke had been successful and had taken off, I think this is really interesting, and I just think I like this strategy. I really do, because I get annoyed when services kind of force new features on users, especially when I feel they haven't been properly, I don't want to say tested, but aren't really built to reflect the user. It's something, oh, we're just trying because our competitors are doing it, or, oh, we're just doing it because we think it's the future, but we don't really know. But to me, it makes sense to do it as a separate app. Because something like, I don't know if you guys have used Carousel, Dropbox's kind of standalone photo app.
No,
I haven't.
Is
it good?
It's not great. Again, I don't really care about photos. We just talked about it, but
yeah. This is totally random. Thinking more about photos, like I think like there are no photo apps that I like want right now, but I want something to do something with my photos. I just don't know what it is. So someone solve my problem, please. This is a plea.
So what don't you like about Picture Life?
I don't not like it. Like
the Android app.
I mean,
right.
The app's not good, but like objectively, I don't really have to use the app to benefit from Picture Life. I think their website's fine. But like, I want like, it's nice that it's like a backup of all my photos, but like, I want something. I don't know. Maybe I just need to go on it.
Have you used Picture Life? Like, uploaded photos to it?
Yeah.
Okay. So you get like the whole photo management thing through the web interface. But I think the iOS experience is much better because when you plug your phone in, you offload all your photos to iPhoto, and then they automatically get uploaded. Whereas Android doesn't really have that. You just, as far as I can see, the best solution for
the
Android is
app
Plus
like
Photos.
automatically backs up.
Okay.
Yeah, like all the I haven't opened Picture Life in a while, but like all my photos that I took since then are on Picture Life now, which is pretty nice actually. I'm enjoying that. I guess it is. It's like iPhoto except not annoying. Like,
right.
It just worked.
Yeah.
Huh. All right. Well, the jury's still out. I'll revisit this Picture Life stuff.
All right.
See if I'm still unimpressed.
Colby is not impressed.
I think to just kind of wrap up the standalone app story, I really like when companies try out new things. I don't like when they screw up their existing app to do it. And I think, and I know that was a loaded statement, but I think that, because I saw a look on Colby's face, but I know the...
Oh, I was just looking at pictures. I wasn't even listening to you.
Great. Really promising. Good to know. But I just think it's really cool to see companies trying new things, and I think Facebook's Paper app is a really great example of a really good app that they could have never really kind of built into could have launched as a new Facebook app. I think too many people would have automatically said, oh, it's too different, I hate it, I don't want it, and this is confusing, and there would have been all this press about it, and Facebook would have pulled back and said, wait, no, we changed our mind, we'll roll it out slowly. But by doing it as its own separate app, it's taken time to curate, to get better over time. Will it become Facebook someday? Who knows? Does it matter? I just think it's an interesting strategy, and it's cool, and I like companies that are willing to roll the dice and invest even just a little bit of time and effort to try something new.
But what about my contention as someone who works on this stuff is it's hard to vet your idea if people are opting into even experiencing it. So for like the new photos flows that they might have tested out in the Facebook Photos app, there are much fewer people, I guarantee you, using the Facebook Photos app than they were using the Facebook mobile app photo upload. So,
yeah.
And those people are self-selecting. They're opting into this new experience. So you're not getting a good population of your users that way.
Yeah, you're right in that you're by taking it out of your main experience, you're sacrificing that insta users thing.
But they are
Right.
also self-selecting. This is why users can't opt out of experiments in modern day websites, because if you do, then everyone opts out and you don't get any of the data of the people who maybe you didn't build the product right for them. That's probably why they're opting out. But if they're not using it, then you won't be able to fix it for them.
But I think that's the difference between testing small groups and testing large groups, right? I mean, you can roll out a feature to a select group of users of a product and not cause necessary mayhem, but I just think if it's kind of the difference between rolling out a test to 100 people or having 50,000 downloads of the paper app and being able to roll a test out to them. Now, yes, are they self-selecting? Sure. But if they all took the time to download the Facebook camera app, they have an active interest in photography. But I do see your point. I don't think it's a perfect environment. I just think it's a different environment, for better or worse.
Yeah, that's fair.
But at least it reduces the risk, I think, for large companies to try new things.
Yeah, fair enough.
I don't know.
I
This show is brewed fresh weekly by the Coffee and Beer Podcast Network. Get all our shows at our website, coffeeandbeer.tv.